Alrighty, a very good Friday afternoon to you. Welcome in Chico Borman Show here on the Big Play Sports Network. You made it to the weekend, and oh boy, do we have an exciting weekend in store. Of course, the Browns at home again, this time taking on the Chicago Bears. Bears have won 2 in a row, the first time since 2021. That sounds like an old Brownsian stat or something. That's crazy. But the Bears are starting to play some better football. Browns obviously are really, really hurting, figuratively, literally, all of it. We will head to Berea coming up at 12:10. So in about 5 minutes or so, well, I should say 9 minutes or so. My watch is a little fast, Boom. People tell me I shouldn't do that, but I always do it. So we will talk to Dan Lobby of the Cleveland Plain Dealer and Cleveland.com coming up at 10 minutes past the hour, the very latest on the Browns, very latest on those injuries, and also trying to get as well as they can ahead of Chicago coming up on Sunday at Cleveland Browns Stadium. So that'll happen at 12:10, at 12:30. Man, oh man, we got so much. I'm like, my brain is fried. Plus, I had no internet at home, so I came in here and I'm basically I'm stealing Wi-Fi, Boom. Don't tell anybody, but I'm stealing Wi-Fi. I don't know what's going on.
Ciphering it off for your own disposal.
Yeah. I've been siphoning it off, and hopefully nobody will be none the wiser, but we'll see. 12:30. Sean Hammond is a young man covering the Bears for Bears Insider. Again, 2 wins, 2 consecutive wins, and they beat the Lions pretty handily. I mean, that was a very impressive win over the Detroit Lions. Say what you will about Dan Campbell's squad, and, well, are they for real? Are they pretenders? What are they? That's still a very good team, and that Chicago team, again, Justin Fields starting to get back in the flow of things. The defense has been very good. I will say that while the Browns lost a lot of guys this week, the Bears lost Yannick Ngakoue, their great pass rusher. But Montez Sweat has been outstanding for them, rushing the quarterback, and he has had, I want to say, like 4.5 sacks since being acquired. He's been outstanding. He will be a problem for the Browns coming up on Sunday. But Sean Hammond will join us at 12:30, and then at 1:30. Been a while since we talked to this girl. Samantha Bunton with NBC Sports, Sunday Night Football. She has to do all the grunt work for Tirico and Collinsworth and that great crew. Great researcher, Northeast Ohio native, proud Mayfield Wildcat alum. And we will talk to Samantha Bunton coming up at 1:30, not only about the NFL going around the league, talk a little Browns, but also a little Guards, because she loves her some baseball, and that's one of the reasons I love Samantha Bunton. So we'll talk to her at 1:30. All right, Bohm is here. Bohm, how you doing over there? You ready to roll on this Friday?
Yeah, Chico, I got that little extra pep in my step for it being Friday. Woo!
So if this was like Monday through Thursday, we don't know. We might need the paddles to get Bohm going. But because it's Friday, he does have a pulse.
It does help.
He does.
It really does help. I get to sleep in tomorrow, Chico. Tomorrow's my day. I cannot wait.
There's so many jokes I can make right there, but I won't. Because, again, it is Friday, and you definitely made it in. We got Pick 6, by the way, before the show is out as well, courtesy of our friends at Tipico. So, as I said, loaded up. And, hey, I mentioned all of that and didn't mention a couple of things from last night. So, the Raiders absolutely lambasted. I don't use that word very often, but it suffices here. The Raiders lambasted the Chargers last night. I know it's early. Well, not that early on the West Coast. What is it, like 9 a.m.?
5 after 9.
5 after 9, yeah, to be exact. We want to be exact.
Wonder if Booney's up.
He is. Actually, he just he retweeted something that I put out.
Speak of the devil.
Gotta love Booney. Raiders 63, Chargers 21. and I'm not happy to say this. You never want to see somebody lose their job. You certainly don't want to see a local guy lose his job. Brandon Staley did well at John Carroll, and Brandon Staley he's got to be gone. I mean, that was, a lot of times we'll say, and sometimes I think we say it too much, like, oh, a team quit on their coach. That was about as close close a game and as closely a team has done that I've seen in a long time. I mean, the Chargers looked absolutely like they wanted to be somewhere else, not necessarily not in Vegas because, who wouldn't want to be in Vegas, but they wanted to be at a slot machine or a gentleman's club or a poker table. They did not seem like they wanted to be playing the Raiders last night. And Brandon Staley, I mean, what do you say? I mean, I tweeted last night. I don't even know. I can't even picture him addressing the team after last night. I was flipping back and forth between the Cavaliers and Boston, and of course this game on Thursday, Raiders 63-21, and I'm just like, what is going on? It was really bad. But what was interesting is when I tweeted that out about, I don't know how Brandon Staley is even going to be able to address his team, and I think it's clear that he's done, and we'll see if it happens today, seeing any breaking news that comes over. So while I tweeted that, I didn't say specifically Brandon Staley. I didn't reference even really the Chargers, I don't think. Maybe I did. And I had a number of you people who chimed in right away and said, yeah, I know. I mean, they shouldn't even let JB come back on the team plane. Bickerstaff, of course, is who are you referring to. All right, listen. They lost to Boston, and I'm not saying I'm not making excuses because they looked lifeless, much like the Chargers looked lifeless in Vegas. The Cavs looked lifeless at the start of the game against Boston. On Tuesday, okay, well, it's the back end of a day-night game, and yeah, okay, you get all of that. But, it was bad. It was bad. The only thing I will say, though, is, first of all, Boston's a very good basketball team. I mean, this team is undefeated at home, 12-0. And let's reserve judgment on JB's job security until after this homestand. I mean, I know many of you are coming with the pitchforks. You have been since last year's postseason. I get it. And I'm not saying this guy's done a great, but there's been a lot of injuries. Evan Mobley didn't play again last night. There's a lot that they need to figure out, but let's just wait. They've got 4 straight at home beginning tomorrow, and, we'll talk all about that later. But I thought it was interesting that when I made the joke, not even a joke, about Staley and why even address the team, many of you immediately just jumped on board and said, yeah, you're right, Chico. They shouldn't even have JB on the plane. Calm down, kids. Calm down. All right, joining me right now from Berea, looks like he's indoors, Boom. I hope he's indoors because it's damn cold outside. Dan Lobby, Cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer, does a great job covering the Browns along with Mary Kay Cabot and Ashley. And, Dan, we appreciate you taking some time, buddy. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I am indoors today. A little echoey here, but still indoors. So.
Oh, sound quality is perfect. The hair is obviously looking swell as well. So you're in really good shape. All right, let's start here. This has been we were talking about injuries, heck, last week on the show when you joined us on Friday. But it just seemed like every day we opened up, or I personally opened up Twitter, it was like, I want to close this right away. Another one, Delpit. Now it's Oboe. Now what's going on here? To the Browns' credit, no excuses, next man up. But this has been a wallop as far as the injuries that have been mounting for this team.
Yeah, it's been relentless, and I think there's no more shining example of it than, Mo Hurst kind of out of nowhere, right? You lose him for the season, and then you find out Obo Okoronkwo could be lost for the season. It sounds like that's where that's headed, although nothing official has come down about that. And even, the other day, Kevin kind of slides in the middle of a press conference that Grant Delpit had surgery, which wasn't previously known. So it is just little things like that just keep mounting. It's, the things you expect, but then it's these unexpected things where it's like, when is this going to end? Just a new name every single day keeps popping up on this injury report.
Let me ask you about Delpit, just because it's been bugging me all week. Like, we saw the play that he and Miles collided on, and I just assumed, like, oh, it's, concussion, and not to say that that's not a big deal, but I thought it was a concussion or a neck injury, a stinger, something like that. And then to hear it was a groin, like that was surprising. I didn't even hear anything about that until, as you mentioned, the announcement was made and he had surgery.
Yeah, it was kind of bizarre because I think they might have announced groin in the press box. I can't remember. But then when you went back and rewatched the play, because you're right, I thought, oh, he hit Miles. It's probably some sort of concussion or head injury, something like that. And then all of a sudden you hear groin. And then when you go rewatch the play, as he leaps in the air, he kind of grabs a little bit at his leg. And then he runs into Miles. So maybe that kind of embodies this team as well. Like you think it's one injury, it's another injury. So yeah, it was kind of a strange play, but yeah, he kind of leapt in the air and then you kind of see him grab at his leg and then he runs into Miles. And obviously you're thankful in that moment that he didn't take Miles out as well.
Dan Lobby joining us from Cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. He's live in Berea right now as the Browns just getting done practicing, awaiting to hear from Coach Stefanski. Speaking of Coach Stefanski, and I thought you wrote a great piece talking about how, we always hear the next man up. And I think some fans, you roll your eyes like, yeah, okay, where are these guys coming from? But to their credit, whether it be Stefanski, Schwartz, others, as you pointed out in your column this week, they made it a priority in terms of getting guys lower on the depth chart some time in case things like this arise. I'm sure they couldn't see anything like this coming, but talk about that a little bit and kind of the attitude right now, even with all of the injuries.
Yeah, I think Kevin has set a tone that, like, if you're one of these position coaches, it's your job, obviously, to get the starters ready to play, but you've got to make sure the guys below them are ready to play too, going all the way down to the practice squad. And they've done a really good job of identifying coaches who are really good at that. And I also think it's a benefit of stability too. You've had a coach and GM here for 4 years, so they're not in a rush to give up on a guy. Like Nick Harris is a great example of this, right? He was supposed to start when JC Treader left. Then he gets hurt. Ethan Posick takes over. But Nick has been in your system. You know him. You've been able to prepare him and keep him ready. He's been working with Bill Callahan now for 4 years. And so this is a guy that, we don't know the status of Ethan Posick this week either. If Nick has to go, he's played for you and he's started for you. And you've been able to find a role for him. And so it's little things like that. It's that combination of coaching, getting these guys ready to play, but also having some stability where a GM and a coach are willing to give some of these young guys, even undrafted guys. Ronnie Hickman is an undrafted rookie. DeAnthony Bell is a second-year undrafted guy. Give these guys some time to actually develop and grow.
Albert Breer, of course, with Monday Morning Quarterback, was writing about the Browns last week, and he actually referenced, you mentioned Bill Callahan, brought him up and said, man, this is where you really, you're glad you have him and you paid him a lot of money because, and it's not to say that, okay, the guys that are down in the depth chart, he's just going to wave a magic wand and they're going to turn into all pro guys. But what could be like a catastrophic, like, oh my gosh, we can't recover from this. You feel like Bill Callahan, because he's Bill Callahan, is going to find a way, game plan, however he's got to do it, mix and match, find a way to get through it. And I think this is where, you're really, really glad to have that guy as your O-line coach.
Yeah, and it's a matter of everyone knowing the assignment too, right? So not everyone can be Jack Conklin, for example, but you can make an average right tackle a little better, and you can work with an average tackle at a position as, and obviously, look, you've got Joel Bitonio, Wyatt Teller, Ethan Posick. You've got a great interior on this line, so that helps. But everyone just knowing the assignment and knowing when my number gets called, this is what I have to do. This is my job. I'm going to get this much help. It's just everyone in that room knowing what they're supposed to do. And I think that's another thing Kevin has done well with Bill Callahan. I think Stump Mitchell is another example of this, just longtime coaches who he can lean on. And they're just also really good at making sure they get guys ready to play.
All right, real quick, we just got breaking news. The Chargers did, in fact, fire Brandon Staley, so no surprise there. That was kind of crazy last night how that played. And honestly, Dan, it makes us think, and you never like to see a guy get fired, but how can you not go back to the the very lean and very many lean years where that was like the Browns? Will they make it to the end of the season before turning over? So I guess in the midst of all of this adversity this week and all these injuries, it's like, they are 8-5. They are right in the thick of the playoff hunt. So we've got plenty of things to be grateful for. Let me run this by you only because I've had, and I think we can set our watches to this every year come December when the injuries begin to pile up. And I even joked about it on Monday, and sure enough, on Wednesday, I got a note on it from a fan. When are they going to fire the strength conditioning coach and the trainers? And look, I'm not saying like the players are getting what they deserve. I don't want to come off like that, but this is part of the CBA, right? Like these guys, no team is ready of the 32. No team is ready to go in September anyway. It usually takes them a good month, but with the lack of contact and the physicality and things that, and good. I mean, it's helping them, and hopefully down the line they're going to be healthier. But these guys are just not prepared. I don't think anybody could be for a grind now that is, a 17-game NFL season.
Yeah, I think that's an easy finger to point sometimes. But look, I mean, some of these injuries, I don't know that you can put them on that, right? Like, I mean, Nick Chubb had his knee bent in half, right? Like that has nothing to do with your strength program or your training program.
Especially him.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's easy to point at that sometimes, but I think you're right. I think some of the soft tissue stuff, some of that stuff kind of comes from perhaps a less physical training camp. And, I do think sometimes in training camp, you'll see guys on the bikes and you're wondering like, okay, why is that guy on the bike every day? And some of that is protecting guys. We've had plenty of examples where guys have spent all of training camp on the bike and they're just good to go week one. So they're really trying to balance, protecting guys and getting them on the fields for Sundays. I think a lot of these injuries though are really just kind of freakish injuries. I mean, when a guy has an MCL injury or something like that, I don't know how much you point to the training staff on that. That's just kind of football. And that's just sort of the attrition of football.
Is Dwayne Bowe still on a bike somewhere, Bree?
Oh, I'm sure he is. Probably somewhere in this facility right now.
Hey, first of all, are you? I know you got to attend to Kevin's press conference. Are we? Do we have a few minutes, or do you need?
Oh yeah, we've got some time.
Okay, we're talking to Dan Labbe again. Cleveland.com, Cleveland Plain Dealer. Follow him on Twitter at Dan_Labbe. That's LABBE. Joe Flacco this week, and these stories just get better and better. Like they're asking him about the contract, and he's like, I don't even know how much I've gotten paid. Yeah, I had no idea. I'm just going out there to win football games. But nationally, some people were taking shots like, hey, what are the Browns doing? Like he's on the practice squad. It was a matter of getting a contract together, and they were able to do that and get that settled until the end of the season, right?
Yeah, that was just an issue of, I don't know why it started happening, but a lot of national people decided to do kind of the Browns is the Browns thing and tweet out that, Kevin named Joe the starter, but now he's back on the practice squad. The reality was there was never any risk that he was going to get signed away. No one could just claim him. He'd have had to have agreed to a contract to actually leave and go to somebody else's 53. It was all just procedural. And I wasn't sure if they were even going to do it this week, if they might use that third elevation on him and then do it next week, kind of keep that extra roster spot that they've been able to do with him on the practice squad. I think with all the injuries and some of those other moves, it just came down to like, okay, we've got the spots. Let's just sign this contract now that it's done. So there was never any concern that Joe was going to leave. It was always just a procedural move, and they got it done on Thursday. And it ended up being kind of a bigger deal than it needed to be because, again, there were some folks on the national level that sort of wanted to make a big deal of it at the beginning of the week.
He continues to be Joe Flacco, and it's not necessarily perfect, but it's just I said it this week in talking to Nick Shook on Tuesday. Like you just feel we spent so many weeks, so many years for that matter, where we're white knuckling it. We're grabbing that steering wheel. We're white knuckling it with these QBs, and I just feel like, yeah, okay, he's going to throw a pick, and that's whatever, but he's going to make the right decision. And, he's going to execute the offense. He's going to make it look like it should look for Kevin Stefanski and company. And that's just something we haven't seen here. And he did it again last week.
Yeah, and the jokes have been going around Twitter about how Kevin and Joe are like the same person, but in a lot of ways, like Joe just runs this offense so well. And I think maybe that goes back a little bit to when, Gary Kubiak was his offensive coordinator for that 1 year in Baltimore. That fit was just so good. That was Joe's best year statistically. And so now he's really fit into what Kevin wants to do offensively. And it's funny. You kind of look at the stat lines. If you're only looking at the stat lines, aside from the 311 passing yards, you look at the completion percentage. Maybe you look at the ratings, and you'd be like, "That's okay." But when the eyeball test has been like, this offense is really moving, and he's getting the ball, like you said, to the right people. He's running that play action to perfection. He's pushing the ball down the field, which is something they just didn't have before. And so for this guy to be your fourth quarterback, a guy that you pulled off the street to kind of stumble into this, I guess it's about time the Browns got a break like this at the quarterback position. He's been really good. And I think it's going to continue. I don't know if it's always going to look great. There's probably going to be a dud of a game coming up at some point, but I think fitting in this offense and the way Kevin feels comfortable calling plays for him, I think they're going to be able to keep this rolling.
So we started talking about injuries. We'll end it talking about injuries and the very latest. Amari Cooper, are we thinking that he's going to be able to go on Sunday?
Yeah, I would imagine Amari's going to be able to go. He's, obviously cleared the concussion protocol last week. I think he's going to be fine to be out there, and you hope he starts feeling a little bit better because, he had a good game on Sunday, but he still hasn't quite looked like Amari Cooper yet. So hopefully he's starting to get right.
On the other side of the ball, Juan Thornhill, calf.
I'm a little more pessimistic about that because we didn't see him out at practice today. And usually on Friday, if you don't even see a guy like Ethan Posick, he didn't practice today, but he at least came out of the weight room where they stretch and stuff and was at least visible. And we saw him. We haven't seen Juan all week. So I'm a little pessimistic about that one.
All right, Browns-Bears coming up on Sunday. I will say this, Dan, before we let you go. It's funny, you look at the Denver game and you look at the Rams game, and I think I may have mentioned it to you last week that a month ago, 2 months ago, you looked at those games and you thought, oh, yeah, they should be okay. Bears was another one, and now they've won. Talk about an old Brown stat, or sounds like an old Brown stat. 2 consecutive wins for the first time since 2021. But the Bears are playing some good football. They can get pressure on the quarterback. They've had an injury with Ngakoue, but Montez Sweat's been great. What do you see from the Bears, and how do you think this thing shakes out on Sunday?
It kind of starts with what they can do with Justin Fields. And it feels like they've kind of made the decision they're going to play to Justin's strengths and let him be a runner and let him use his legs. And, Jim Schwartz surprised me yesterday. He said Justin has one of the strongest arms he's seen. That kind of came out of nowhere. So, this game has me a little worried just on kind of the vibes a little bit, just because do we believe the Browns are going to win 5 in a row to finish the season? I don't know about that. And 2, at some point, these things need to catch up with them, right? Like the injuries need to catch up with them. The turnovers need to catch up with them. And I just wonder if this ends up being like a trap game for them. And then they kind of turn it around and finish the season strong. So, this game has me a little bit nervous. I'm not 100% sure. We have to make picks on Thursdays on our podcast, and I'll admit that I picked the Bears. I don't feel great about it. That could change by the time I have to make my official pick for the paper on Saturday. So I'm still kind of trying to figure out where to go with this game. But for whatever reason, I just feel like at some point this stuff is going to catch up to them. And I just wonder if it might be this week. This feels like a little bit of a trap game.
Now, before all you fans out there start throwing things at the screen and, oh, man, if you media people would just be more positive, the Browns would do. Dan's being objective. That's his job, and he's objective and does a great job. Hey, Dan, we appreciate the time as always, buddy. Browns-Bears coming up on Sunday, and we'll talk to you again next week, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks a lot.
All right, Dan Lobby again with Cleveland.com and The Plain Dealer. Dan_Lobby. You can follow him on Twitter. I'm nervous about it, more so on Monday. Before all these other injuries came out, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I know the Bears are playing well, but the Browns will take care of business. But to his point, and he's right, like now all of a sudden, and I hope nobody's thinking that there are games out there that are gimmies. I mean, my God, this is the NFL, and week 15, and we've seen it all play out the way it has. Now, it's okay to say, yeah, I feel good about this one, don't feel good about that one. I didn't feel real good about the Rams game. I think the Browns find a way. I also think they find a way in large part because hopefully that place is going to be rocking and rolling on Sunday. You had a few empty seats when the game kicked off last week, and I don't think that'll be the case this week. I think, this team is kind of garnered the hearts of many out there. I think teams or fans were a little skeptical after the Detroit loss and after the Rams loss, but that win last week I think went a long way. And but it's not going to be easy. Again, this Bears team, they're coming to play, and who knows? I mean, is Eberflus now all of a sudden? We'll talk to Sean Hammond here in a moment from Bears Insider, but is Matt Eberflus, is he now safe? I mean, the Bears, believe it or not, I think the Bears are like one game out in the playoff hunt. That's how crazy and long these seasons are, and how things just change on a dime. I mean, you've got teams that you just said, oh yeah, well, you pencil them in. Kansas City now all of a sudden has issues. The Eagles have issues. You don't know what's going to happen week to week, and now all of a sudden the Bears are, playing some decent football, as Dan said, and we'll talk about this with Sean in a moment. Finally playing to Justin Fields' strengths. My goodness, wow, what a concept. Still very curious what they're going to do with Justin long term, because, if you do go the route of the rookie quarterback, whether that's Caleb Williams, whether that's Drake May, you're restarting that clock and you're saving that money. But at the same time, you don't want to just give up on a guy. Jim Schwartz has seen a lot of arms. Jim Schwartz is prepared for a lot of quarterbacks. And for Jim Schwartz yesterday, as Dan Lobby pointed out, to say that Justin Fields has one of the strongest arms. I mean, this guy, he's a physical specimen. I mean, you're talking like, 6'5", 6'6"? Is he that big? Probably like 6'3" or 6'4".
Yeah, I want to say 6'4".
Yeah, about 6'3", 6'4", but 230 pounds, runs about a 4.3, 4.4 40, legit. And, he can make plays with his legs, and that's kind of what the Bears are allowing him to do more of. By the way, speaking of injuries with the Bears, DJ Moore, I know, is questionable. My guess is he plays, especially with them kind of right in this hunt. But DJ Moore is a very, very talented wide receiver, banged up with an ankle, but my guess is he probably gives it a go. You got something there, Bo?
I want to emphasize the importance here that I think they should not waste away a high draft pick by giving up on Justin Fields.
Okay, now if Justin Fields was a Michigan Wolverine, would you still be saying this, Bo? Because here's the thing. It's not just Justin Fields. I agree with you. We're in agreement totally on Justin Fields and his talent. But it's okay, you're going to have to pay him, as we'll talk with Sean here in just a moment. You're going to have to pay him, whereas if you draft a guy, I'm with you, though. I think ultimately, and maybe it's the Buckeye homer in me, I don't know. I think Justin Fields is very capable of leading a team if they can just do some good stuff around him. All right, without further ado, let us head back out, and this time we're going to Chicago. We were talking about this Bears team coming up on Sunday that will take on the Browns, and again at Cleveland Browns Stadium just after 1 o'clock the kick. Bears playing some good football. They've won 2 in a row. Sean, I said it sounded like a very Browns-like stat from years past when the Browns have been struggling, where you look at that and you say, wait a minute, they've had back-to-back wins for the first time since 2021? No, that can't be right. But it's right. Good news is, they're kind of right there in terms of the playoff hunt, correct?
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable the way this season started. They were 0-4 way back when, and then Justin Fields goes out for a month with a thumb injury, and to all of a sudden be in this position where you're still in the hunt, you're still in it. I feel like we react so much to those early season games, and you kind of forget along the way. This is a long season, man.
Bingo. Yeah, that's what we were just saying. Even with injuries, with teams, doing well, teams not doing well, the expectations. It really is a marathon and certainly not a sprint. And Chicago was a team, I was talking earlier, the Browns lost to Denver, they lost to the Rams. And a month or two ago, fans were looking at those games and I think justifiably saying, okay, well, nothing's going to be easy, but those should be W's, right? Well, they're not, because now Denver's turned it around. Now the Rams have turned it around. And I think we all feel the same way about this Bears team. Let me start with Justin Fields, though, because you probably just heard my producer and I talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
We're very familiar with him here, being Buckeyes and, Ohio. I'm a big Justin Fields guy. Not only just the talent, but I've always admired his attitude. And I hear in Chicago saying that, like, he works his tail off, constantly wants to, be getting better, and I think is getting better. What do you think, is the jury really still out on Justin Fields, or whether they draft a quarterback? Is that really still up in the air as we approach 5 games left?
Yeah, I mean, look, time's running out, certainly, but I think you got to let this season play out. When he came back from that thumb injury, he had 7 games left on the schedule, and it was kind of the referendum then. It's like, okay, you got 7 games left. This is your chance to put a lasting impact in your GM's mind. And there's been some ups and downs already in the 3 games he's been back. And I think if you're Ryan Poles, the GM, you got to just remember. And even if you're just a fan watching, look at these 7 games in totality. Let him play out the season. I don't think the GM's mind is made up, but at the same time, I mean, you got to see results. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And Justin has done a good job of doing what they ask of him. They've made some nice changes in the offense that sort of reflect what he can do. Is that ultimately the GM's got to determine, does he have the skill set to be your long-term quarterback, to be the guy who can lead you down deep Super Bowl, playoff runs, that type of thing. But certainly he has done what they've asked of him. You look back to, they played a game a couple of weeks ago in Minneapolis, and, they were throwing the ball sideways a lot. It wasn't really a downfield passing attack, but they did enough to win the game. And so at the end of the day, that's all you can really ask of your quarterback.
Sean Hammond covering the Bears for Bears Insider, Bears Browns, just after 1 o'clock Sunday afternoon at Cleveland Brown Stadium. So we talk about, is Justin Fields safe? It wasn't that long ago that Matt Eberflus probably won't be back, and who knows, Ryan Poles. Do you think those 2 guys, or are we still, again, is that still contingent on what happens these last 4 games?
Certainly what happens is going to play a big part of that. How, and not only the wins and losses, but how this team looks in those wins and losses, whatever they wind up doing down the stretch here. I've kind of said all along, I think Ryan Poles is safe. I think the GM, it's moving on from a GM after 2 years is pretty darn quick. Not to say that teams haven't done that, but
we've done that here in Cleveland.
Yeah, I do think, that the head coach, certainly the way things looked early in the season, you were wondering if this thing was really going to last. And, I think they've done a good job of sticking to their fundamentals, sticking to the grind, so to speak. And you see in the way the defense is playing now, they've had 3 straight games with 3+ turnovers. That wasn't happening early in the season. And so you can kind of see the pieces coming together. I'm not ready to say that Matt Eberflus is safe. I think they need a strong finish these last 4 games, but I think he's put himself in position to potentially be back next year. And I do think it's notable that Ryan Poles has sort of backed him, at least publicly, every chance he's gotten. I know, the real important conversations are happening behind closed doors. We'll never hear that, but I do think it's notable that the GM has stood by him.
So, obviously with the remaining 4 games being so important, it goes without saying each of these are huge games. But if I'm reading right and kind of, following some of the breadcrumbs in Chicago, there are people that are saying this game against the Browns is maybe their biggest since 2020, right?
Yeah, I mean they haven't been in any position to use the word playoffs in a while, and look, it's a long shot. They probably got to win out. You certainly got to win this game this week if you want to keep that talk alive. But that's given this team motivation. That's given these players, something to point toward, and I think that does matter. I think you can kind of feel the positivity and the energy for the first time in a while around Chicago when you're talking about the Bears, just because not only are they still technically alive, they've been playing well. You look at their winning football games, like you said, first time in 2 years they've won back-to-back games. That's pretty crazy. Things got pretty dark last year when really they weren't really trying to win. They'll never say that, but they were in teardown mode, and it's good for the city that they're kind of, you can see the upward trajectory. We'll have to see how this thing plays out these last couple of weeks. Certainly they have 4 winnable games, but that Cleveland defense is scary, and you got to win the first one if you're going to win all 4.
Sean Hammond joining us from Chicago Bears Insider as he covers the Bears, and the Bears getting ready for the Browns coming up Sunday just after 1 at Cleveland Browns Stadium. So, okay, one more thing on the offense, because I know on the other side of the ball, that's been a big part of this turnaround as well. But Justin Fields, has there been a reluctance with him to because part of what Justin Fields brings to the equation and brings to the table is he is very athletic. He's also very big. He's fast. I know that you want to be cautious. You don't want to be reckless, but have the Bears kind of struggled towing that line between reckless and cautious and letting him do his thing?
I think that's always been a little bit of a struggle, at least since this coaching staff got here last year. You saw, early in the 2022 season, things just weren't working, and they completely changed the offense, and they played into his strengths as a runner. And then, you fast forward to this season, again, early in the season, they were trying to keep him in the pocket more, and it just wasn't necessarily working. There was a game week 2 against Tampa Bay. There were several key third down plays where he's just holding onto the football for a long time, trying to find an open receiver, and it's not working. And Justin he said that he wanted the offense to play to his strengths a little bit more, and I think it takes a while to change your offense. That doesn't happen overnight, but I think this second half of this season, you're kind of seeing that a little bit more in terms of getting him outside the pocket, moving the pocket, giving him, the run pass options are a really strong part of his game. He was, running up and down against the Lions a couple of weeks ago with those RPOs. And, I think it's funny because you would think that they would have learned that last year, but again, they came back and tried to do something different early this season. It wasn't working. And I do think that they've started to sort of play into his strengths more. And that's kind of why you're seeing them play well.
Part of getting him weapons and trying to build around him was acquiring DJ Moore. He's one of my favorite receivers in the game. Remember seeing a lot of his games at Maryland in the Big Ten. What is his status for the week? I know he had an ankle injury.
Yeah, he tweaked the ankle on Sunday in that game and came out briefly, but did finish the game. And I really think he sat out Wednesday. I really think that was probably just precautionary. He was back limited on Thursday. We'll see what he is a little bit later today on Friday, but I would expect he's going to play. I'd be shocked if he's not playing in this game.
On the flip side of the ball, on the defense, and I'm sure you guys have heard in Chicago, I mean, the injuries have just been a laundry list this week. I know you guys got some bad news with Yannick Ngakoue being out for the Bears for the rest of the season. But the silver lining is Montez Sweat, since getting him from Washington, he has been phenomenal. And I think you wrote about it, how he has really kind of spearheaded this defensive resurgence along with the Bears itself.
Yeah, you look at almost every not just the sacks. You look at almost every team statistic defensively, whether it's points per game, whether it's yards, whether it's passing yards. They've been a lot better since they added Montez Sweat. At the trade deadline after week 8, he's affected the defense on every level. I mean, the secondary doesn't have to play coverage quite as long. Half a beat less than before, and obviously when he's getting home and sacking the quarterback, those are huge plays. I think. It's unfortunate that Ngakoue has gone out now because I think those two guys really played well together in their limited time. Those 5 games together, we'll have to see what, if he can find that same groove with some of these other guys, DeMarcus Walker and Dominique Robinson and some of the other guys who are going to have to pick up the slack. But, Yeah, the defense has played like really, really well since Montez Sweat got here. And another factor in all that too is early in the season, the secondary was really banged up. Eddie Jackson missed time, Kyler Gordon, a cornerback, missed time, Jalen Johnson, their other cornerback, missed a couple of weeks here and there. And that really affected them early in the season. And as banged up as the Browns are, I mean, I know Ngakoue just went out, but the Bears are remarkably healthy for week 15. I mean, Ngakoue is the only guy on IR. You're really only talking about maybe 2 starters on the injury report this week. That's unusual in the NFL at this point of the season in mid-December. And so the defense has really, that's been a help to getting guys healthy.
What have folks been focusing on when looking at this game? And, if the Bears are going to get out of Cleveland with a W, what absolutely has to happen?
I mean, everybody in Chicago is talking about Myles Garrett. I think you look back to, there's been a lot of talk this week about Justin Fields' very first NFL start 2 years ago was in Cleveland. He got sacked 9 times.
4.5 by Myles.
Former coach Matt Nagy didn't really, there were no tight ends chipping, no help in the pass protection. It was not the best game plan. And they finished with 1 passing yard in that game as a team. You gotta limit that pass rush. Find some way to do that. I do think the Bears tackles are a lot better than they were 2 years ago. They got Braxton Jones at left tackle. Darnell Wright was a number 10 overall pick at the right tackle spot. Those are 2 young players, but they've been playing well lately, and certainly that is the matchup to watch. I mean, you got to slow down Myles Garrett. You got to slow down that pass rush.
Sean, in closing, and forgive me here, but I got to ask you something Bulls related, if you can shed some light on this, because I was just talking about this yesterday, and I was astounded to learn this. So next month, they're going to honor, the championship teams, and Jordan and Pippen and all.
Yep.
Are Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen really going to be attending that same ceremony on January, whenever it is, the 12th, whatever? Are they slated to be together at the arena, taking it all in?
I wish I could give you the answer on that. I'm honestly not sure, but I do know that Bulls fans are certainly excited about that. That would be fun if they get all those guys back together.
It would be fun. I just wonder after
everything that was said, and
I mean, I don't think it's any secret that Scotty wasn't real happy and Michael doesn't care, and so it's just, when I first heard it, I'm like, that can't be right. I mean, this seems like a reality, but hey, if the Bulls aren't playing well, then maybe they've got that. As far as
they got that going for him.
Absolutely. Hey, Sean, I appreciate the time, buddy. Doing great work with Bears Insider. Again, Sean Hammond joining us today. You can follow him on Twitter at Sean, underscore Hammond on Twitter, and does great work with Bears Insider. Appreciate it, buddy. Thanks for the time.
All right. Thanks for having me.
All right, buddy. Take care.
You too.
All right. That is, again, Sean Hammond, underhand. I can't get it all right, Boom. I mentioned this yesterday, and I don't know if we talked about it on the air or if it was off the air, but like Jordan and Pippen, I'm gonna have to look that up during a break, because I mean, it makes sense. I get it. You want to celebrate those teams, and maybe they're thinking, maybe Chicago's thinking that if they get them back for like a celebration type thing, the warm and fuzzies will creep back in, and everybody will be happy-go-lucky and hugs and, oh, my bad, man. I love you, dog. I don't know. I mean, like Scotty's Scotty and Michael's Michael, and that's that. I feel like I want to be there for that. Like, I want to see, like, do the fans boo? Nobody's going to boo Michael. We know that. Are the fans going to boo Scotty? The thing is, Scotty has a lot of support in Chicago, and I think he should. I mean, he was the narrative with Scottie Pippen, not to go off too far in the weeds on this, but the narrative with Scottie Pippen was always, like any guy playing second fiddle to MJ, well, he's never going to get the credit he deserves. Scottie Pippen is absolutely one of the best players to ever play the game. There's no doubt about it. But it just, it was all about Mike, and then he had the contract stuff, and then, fans, what is he doesn't want to play. He's forcing the hand. I mean, Jerry Krause, you can second guess a lot of that. But I'm dying to see what that's going to look like. Are they going to be actually standing near each other? Will they even exchange any pleasantries? Are there any pleasantries to exchange between the two of them? Bohm, what do you think? That's reality TV at its best.
I am curious to see. I mean, I wonder if they talked to them behind closed doors and asked, like, hey, are you guys willing to be in the same room?
You would think.
Yeah, but I guess we'll see how it plays out. I mean, with the date again, when is that? That's next year?
I think, next year. Yeah, January 12th. So next month and next year.
Yeah.
I think it's January 12th. We'll look it up during the break. I can't imagine they would go blindly into this and know that it could be an absolute disaster.
There has to be a plan.
But then at the same time, like I said, Michael's Michael, Scotty, end of discussion. And they did not leave on good terms, certainly after the Last Dance. All right, we will take a quick timeout. When we come back, we're going to play a little Pick Six, brought to you by our friends at Tipico. And of course, as always, we culminate it with the Browns. And this week, it is those Chicago Bears. They're a little banged up, but no, the Browns are really, really banged up. Will that affect them and affect the outcome of this game, win or lose? We'll be talking about that and give you 5 other games as well. It is the Chico Borman Show. More to come. Don't forget Samantha Bunton, NBC Sports Sunday Night Football, and proud Mayfield Wildcat alum. She'll be talking NFL, but also a little guard. She loves her baseball. So we'll do that coming up at 1:30. Chico Borman Show. More to come right here in the Big Play Sports Network. righty, welcome back on a sunny. It's the sunshine out there. Might be a little brisk, but hey, we got the sunshine in the sky here at Burke Lakefront Airport. Where we broadcast live here on the Big Play Sports Network. Chico Borman Show with you until 2 o'clock. Coming up in the 1 o'clock hour, 1:30 to be exact. Samantha Bunton, Mayfield Wildcat alum, Northeast Ohio native, loves her Guardians baseball, loves all Cleveland sports. But she does work for NBC and specifically Sunday Night Football. One of the researchers, like I said, does all the dirty work so Tirico and Collinsworth can look good. But we'll talk to Samantha. It's been a while since we've been able to hook up with her. So good stuff, hopefully coming from Samantha at 1:30. But in the meantime, folks, if you need bet credits for football season, you know it. The Big Play Network presented by Tipico Sportsbook. Tipico Sportsbook app has your traditional bets like the money line, spread, and point totals, but can also lock in player props and check out our Big Play boosts every single week to back your favorite Cleveland teams and athletes with the best odds in Ohio. Get in the action, load up for football season using promo code BIGPLAY100. You will get $100 in bet credits on us, plus a $30 dog pound bet. Bet with the Big Play crew all season long with Tipico Sportsbook. Boom, it is time once again for a little pick six. You ready to roll?
Let's do it, baby.
You ready to roll? All right.
Daddy needs new shoes.
I'll let you go first. Daddy needs new shoes. I like it. All right. We actually keep in mind there's game, and for you fantasy players, if you still have life late in the season, you're in the playoffs. Remember, there are 3 games on Saturday, and we're actually gonna. All 3 of them are pretty solid. We're gonna start there on Saturday. The Vikings travel to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. Vikes at 7-6, Bengals at 7-6. Kind of 2 teams going in 2 different directions. Remember, it was Josh Dobbs, and we were all crucifying Andrew Berry, and all of a sudden Dobbs is actually the 3rd-string quarterback. But Jake Browning is thriving with the Cincinnati Bengals and has them still in the playoff hunt. Both teams, again, 7-6. The Bengals are laying 3 points, so the Vikes getting 3 in this game. Boom. Who you got?
Well, first off, before we get into that, you mentioned fantasy, and I want to shout out Eric Casillas because I used his strategy in one league for Shanahanigans, and they are the lead point scoring team in the league. Meanwhile, in the other league where I tried to use the strategy, but my fantasy partners did not allow it, we were officially eliminated from playoff contention last week.
Okay, so for clarification, those that don't know and refresh my, what was his strategy?
Wide receiver heavy to start the draft, Chico. Don't take a running back in the first 3 rounds. I took that strategy. I didn't take a running back until round 5, and I am the lead point scorer in the league.
Look at you, Bohm. Thank
you, EK.
I would pass that along to EK, but I know his ego is going to swell. No, I will pass that along to him, and yes, he does do a phenomenal job. We'll be talking to him next week. So congratulations, Bohm.
Thank you.
I actually, in one of my leagues, this is not that we need to really go down this, but I got to say it because it does involve the Browns. So I had Justin Herbert and in the playoffs, and I actually was still able to squeak by, even though he had like no points for me this week, and he's, of course, done. I look on the waiver wire, and you know who's still there. I plucked him, Joey Flacco, the pride of the Delaware Fighting Blue Hens. Boom. He is now not only fighting for a Browns win, but I'm sure he would admit, more importantly, a Chico Borman fantasy football win.
Yeah, and you got to think against this Bears defense, Chico, it's very, very possible for Flacco to go off.
Yeah, now I have not been able to I haven't been able to contact him yet to incentivize him with, if a win, we get $250,000, and if you get to but we can obviously catch up on those details
in addition
later.
To the $75,000 he's getting from the Browns for each win.
God love Joe Flacco. By the way, I will, by the end of the season, I am seriously looking into that Delaware Fighting Blue Hens hoodie. Not a jersey guy, but we'll get something. We'll get some Blue Hens garb up in here by the time it's all said and done. All right, so Vikings, Bengals, both teams 7-6. Vikings are getting 3. Who you like, Bohm?
I think it's really hard to have any faith in the Vikings right now, just based on the quarterback situation. It's been pretty horrible. And meanwhile, with Jake Browning, you're seeing some signs of life. And this guy looks like borderline, dare I say, starter quality material right now. Like when he hits the free agent market, he could get low end starting money right now. So I
Wow, write that down, kid. Bohm with a very bold take. All right.
it doesn't even feel that bold to me, Chico. The way he's played, he's on a hot streak. NFL overpays.
But you're right. But here's the thing. Much like Dobbs, right? What is it we always say about backups? That ultimately it's not can you do it for 2, 3, 4 games? Can you do it 5, 6, 7? That's usually when they start to come back to the mean and defensive coordinators find out tendencies. But you might be right. Maybe you're right. So you're going Bengals?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Bengals here. And ultimately, you're right. It does depend on how Browning finishes the year. But yeah, I'm going to roll with the Bengals here in the hot hand at quarterback.
Well, we agree on this one. Cincinnati at home, too, is a biggie for me. But I think they cover the 3. I'm with you. The Vikings right now, I feel for Josh Dobbs. Good kid. But right now he's 3rd on the depth chart. And the Bengals, they're in a sense of urgency. I think the place is going to be rocking. The defense has actually picked up, too. And that hasn't always been the case this year. So, yeah, I'll take the Bengals laying the 3 against the Minnesota Vikings. All right, we're staying on Saturday. Like I said, all 3 Saturday games are very good ones. The next one, mentioned 7 and 6. That's what we're looking at right here again. The Pittsburgh Steelers 7 and 6 at Indianapolis. Colts are 7 and 6. The Colts at home are the favorite, giving the Steelers 1.5 points. I talk about trusting quarterbacks and it pains me to say this. It really does. It pains me to say this. I love Mitchell Trubisky. I do. The Menor product. On the road, the offense has been and now they've got all the the drama with Pickens, and it's just too much going on. I know they're the Steelers and never count them out. I think it'll be a close game, but that spread is pretty tight too. Give me the Colts laying the 1.5. I think this is like a 3-4 point game, so I'll take the Colts laying the points.
Yeah, so this is definitely Trubisky at the helm for this game, correct?
I believe so. I heard Pickett is not. Well, yeah.
They said because they said he'd be out for a couple weeks initially when he had that surgery right after he left. And so I want to say it's been a couple weeks since it happened.
I thought this week, though, they said, and I don't want to misspeak, I thought on Wednesday's, I guess Wednesday's injury report, I should have checked today's.
I mean, I hadn't heard. I wasn't sure if you did. Either way, I still like Gardner Minshew over both of them. And it feels like the Steelers are one of those teams that are like approaching a boiling point. Just the constant frustrations with George Pickens.
It is Trubisky.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and so not having Pickett for another week, like that. Kenny Pickett isn't exactly like a stud quarterback, but it is a drop off from him to Trubisky. Yeah. So I there's no way I would pick the Steelers with Mitch at the helm right now. He's as good of an organization as Pittsburgh may be. Yeah.
We love you, Menor. I love you, Menor. Resided for a little while in Menor. Love the Cardinals. Love Mitchell Trubisky. Don't love the Steelers on the road at Indianapolis. So here we go. We agree again. All right. This one really, I think, is going to be an interesting game. You got a team talking about resurgence, and it kind of started really right before the Browns played them. It continued after the Browns played them and the week the Browns played them. The Denver Broncos are 7 and 6, and all of a sudden they've started to turn things around completely. They're in the playoff hunt, obviously. They go to Detroit, and the Lions, what is going on with Jared Goff? Like, you start to wonder. You talk about backups, and I talk about backups and tendencies, and like Goff looked like he was so in control and confident and feeling good, and then all of a sudden he has not played well. Lions are laying 4.5 in this one. The Lions are the better team. Man, I feel like the Lions, because they have struggled, a little bit. Obviously, the loss to the Bears. Like, at some point, they're going to get fired up. They're going to be ready to go. Dan Campbell, and they're going to – I want to say it's this game. But, Bohm, I kind of pulled a Lee Corso here. I think the Broncos – I think there's a lot of nervousness coming out of Motown after Saturday's game. I think the Lions lose again. I think they lose to the Broncos straight up. So, obviously, Denver getting the 4.5, I'm taking that. But I think the Lions lose another one at home, and they're really starting to wonder about Jared Goff moving forward.
Yeah, at this point, it seems possible that the Lions could turn it on again, find that spark, get it going, and make a run here to finish out the season.
Yeah.
But they've been slumping, and they haven't shown really many signs of it. And so Russell Wilson has the hot hand right now in a dome in Detroit. I don't see any way I could pick against the Broncos in this one.
So are you picking the Broncos straight up too?
Yeah.
Man, Bohm, you're really we're on the same page for 3 straight games. This is all the Saturday games. You and I are on the same page. I don't know if that's good or bad.
These games feel straightforward to me, Chico.
Oh, straight. All right.
I mean,
so Bohm's telling you this should be Daddy, as he said. Daddy needs new shoes. Feels pretty straightforward to you. Maybe some easy money. That if I want to read between the lines here, folks. Feels like Bohm is telling you you got to tell the big hat guys. You got to tell Warden McAllister and Fanboy
run down
Nick.
and tell them before they start.
Yeah, that, hey, this is pretty straightforward on Saturday. All right, to Sunday games. Big one here. Bills circled the wagons. I told you they would last week, Bohm. Bills circled the wagons. They still got a lot of stuff to worry about, but they're 7-6, still in that hunt again. They are at home against Dak and the Dallas Cowboys. Yes, you're reading it right. If you've been napping for the last couple of months and you just woke up and you're going, the hell happened with Dak Prescott is the leading candidate, or the front runner, I should say, for the MVP. Dak has been great, but they're doing on both sides of the ball, the Cowboys. Cowboys 10-3, Bills 7-6. The Bills are laying 2. They are the favorite in this game. At home in Buffalo. Now, I know Sunday's weather here is supposed to be rain, like 45 degrees, so that's going to play a factor. In Buffalo, God only knows what that could mean. I'm not comfortable doing this, but I'm taking the road team. I think Dallas. How can I pick the Bills last week and then not pick them this week? Well, I'll tell you why. Because I think the Dallas defense ultimately is the difference here. We talk about Dak Prescott, but that Dallas defense is really starting to come together as well. They've got the talent, and then when you do look at the offensive line, guess who's playing? They're healthy. You had Frederick, you had Tyron Smith, and I mean these are great offensive linemen that the last couple of years have been banged up. I don't think it's any. Look, Dak Prescott's doing what he has to do. And not to take anything away from him, but that offensive line is where it all starts. They've been playing great. I think the Cowboys go into Buffalo, win. They move to 11-3. The Bills go to 500. So give me the Cowboys getting 2 points.
Man, Chico, I really thought you were going to go with Buffalo.
I think I'm just making good arguments, and I'm persuading you, Bo.
No, Buffalo's a team that I have a lot of questions about, Chico. And look, you beat KC, but that's another team that I have a lot of uncertainty.
Circles the wagons like the Buffalo. That Sean McDermott thing, maybe it works in their favor. I'm going to try to talk you out of it because I don't like you and I being on the same page for 5 consecutive games.
Dallas has just been too good, Chico. I mean, the Bills, they won, but it was shaky, and Dallas is hitting on all cylinders right now. I'm sorry. I don't know how, with such a slim spread, I don't know how you couldn't pick Dallas to cover.
Okay, well, you will go first on this next one. AFC implications, AFC North as well. The Baltimore Ravens seemingly have it wrapped up with the division. They are 10-3. They go on the road to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars coming up on Sunday, again in Jacksonville against the Jaguars. Jags at home are 3-point underdogs. first of all, let me say this. We said it a little bit on Monday and Tuesday. Trevor Lawrence played his ass off considering the circumstances. There are a lot of guys that wouldn't have been able to suit up. He did not look great, though. And the other thing that didn't help him was the fact that Calvin Ridley seemed lost. I mean, Calvin Ridley is, I think, one of the best route runners, one of the better receivers in the game. But for some reason, the last 2 weeks, and I've been reading some stuff out of Jacksonville, they don't know what the hell's going on with him. But he was not on the same page. I'm not saying that, that's the reason they had all the interceptions, but it certainly didn't help. I think the Ravens are the Ravens, and I think it's going to be a tight one. I think it's going to be close. Matter of fact, I'm actually going to say the Jags cover, but the Ravens win. I'm going to say it's a 2-point game. Like, give me 30-28 Baltimore.
I don't expect the Jags to cover, Chico. So finally we have variance. Because I'm going to take the Ravens outright in that one. And I think, well, firstly, in terms of your point about Ridley, I wonder how much of losing Christian Kirk, because that certainly can change roles a little bit. I wonder how much that impacts it.
I mean, Ridley's a veteran. He's proven. He just, like, he was making some bad decisions. The routes he wasn't finishing. Remember the interception MJ that had? He didn't. He kind of flattened out his route. I mean, Calvin Ridley never does that. So that was just it was weird.
The other thing that I feel like is a concern is that Trevor and Doug Peterson don't trust that offensive line. And so I expect the Ravens, now maybe their pass rush isn't as strong as what the Browns could be. Guys were stepping up left and right before so many suffered injuries. But that Ravens pass rush should have a day against Jacksonville, Chico. And I think that's just going to be the biggest difference in this. Trevor Lawrence is going to be tough day at the office.
Still compromised, you think, with the ankle? And
I don't know, because he looked good.
Yeah.
It was hard to tell that he was hurt last Sunday. So I really don't know how much of that is a factor.
Okay. So, again, for the record, I'm picking the Ravens to win, but the Jags to cover. The line in that one, courtesy of our boys at Tipico, boys and girls at Tipico, is 3. All right. We have arrived. That's right. We have arrived for the moment we've all been waiting for. We got to wait another 48 hours or so. But the Browns and the Bears coming up. Browns are definitely walking wounded. Found a way to get it done last week. That was a very, very big win, considering what happened against Denver, and the Rams had to stop the bleeding. But unfortunately, the bleeding, and I apologize for the play on words here. I'm really not trying to get cute. But the bleeding, figuratively speaking, still continues, and just it's a nightmare. You open up Twitter, you open up the internet every day this week, and it's, well, there's another guy. There's Obo. There's Grant Delpit. There's Mo Hurst. I mean, they're just dropping like flies. But the Browns at home, I think this is a big Zadarius Smith game. I think I think he rises to the challenge. I also think, keep your eye on, this is Jim Schwartz doing a great job, a masterful job, of course, coordinating the defense as he has all year long. I think you'll see, like, JOK make some big plays, blitzing, which, okay, yeah, well, he's been doing that all year. But I think you'll see some exotic blitzes coming from Schwartz. I think they'll be able to get to Fields. I think he'll also be able to slip away at times. But I'm going to take the Browns. I just think the culture and all the stuff that, we keep hearing about, the family atmosphere, and then, of course, Joe Flacco will do just enough. I don't think it's, does he throw for 3? I'm going to say he doesn't throw for 300 again, because I think the weather is going to factor into this. But then at the same time, could Kevin, because he does trust Joe Flacco and because he does have still a cannon for an arm, might he surprise us? I'm going to say he doesn't throw for 300, but I've got the Browns laying the 3 points, getting the win, and moving to 9-5. That's 9er and 5er. The Bears are at 5-8. They're getting 3 points. Boom. Who you got?
Well, Chico, I'm going to take the Bears to cover. And I think that even Flacco hinted at it in his post-game on-field interview with Evan Washburn when he talked about how we keep letting teams hang around, and that's something we need to fix. We need to put them away. But I feel like that's been a very characteristic thing of any Kevin Stefanski team. Like not just this season, going back to last season, going back to the Baker Mayfield era, teams were always hanging around, whether it be Stefanski taking his foot off the gas, the offense just going totally stagnant. And I think that this Fields-led Bears Chicago football team is going to be good enough to, at the very least, hang around. I think this one comes down to the wire, and Fields is going to make some plays on them. Mobile quarterbacks always seem to gash the Browns at one point or another. And I expect him to hit a couple of big throws downfield. So I'm going to say it's close, but the Browns win, Bears cover.
Okay. All right. So there you go. So we actually differ on the remaining two. Did Bohm cave after I called him out for – but, hey, he went first on some. I went first on – you can also say great minds think alike, which scares me because there's things that Bohm thinks that I don't – and vice versa. All right. We're going to take a quick break. Reminder, coming up at the bottom of the hour at 1:30, Samantha Bunton, proud Mayfield High School Wildcat, Northeast Ohio native, all that good stuff. She is with Sunday Night Football and NBC Sports. She will join us. We will talk about Sunday's big matchup. We will also talk about the Browns and go around the league, but also some Guardians baseball. She loves her some baseball. So we'll do that at 1:30. When we come back, updating some breaking news on the heels of last night, an absolute embarrassment by the Los Angeles Chargers. So we'll talk about that. And I want to get to, again, circle back to JB Bickerstaff and the Cavaliers. I know you guys were having some fun at JB's expense. And yes, I know that the Cavaliers are not playing great basketball, but I think we got to hold up a little bit. It's still early. They've had injuries. Well, we'll talk about it next. Chico Borman Show. More to come right here on the Big Play Sports Network. Welcome back as we continue to roll through it on this Friday edition of the Chico Borman Show on the Big Play Sports Network. Of course, just had our Pick 6, and as always, that is brought to you by Tipico. If you need bet credits for football season, the Big Play Network is presented by Tipico Sportsbook. You got to check this out because they have so many boosts. They're going to have some this weekend before the Browns game. I mean, it's always exciting, but then it's like, man, you get to double your pleasure with your favorite team and your favorite players. It's awesome. Tipico Sportsbook app has your traditional bets like that money line spread and point totals, but also lock in those player props. Check out our big play boosts every single week to back your favorite Cleveland teams and athletes with the best odds in Ohio. Get in the action. Load up for football season. You can use promo code. You should use promo code BigPlay100 to get $100 in bet credits on us, plus a $30 dog pound bet. Bet with the Big Play crew all season long with Tipico Sportsbook. Wake up, Boom. Sorry, buddy. I know you had a Boom had a long night. We won't get into anything. It was good, but Boom had a long night, and he's weathering the storm. Unfortunately for the Chargers, Brandon Staley and Tom Telesco were not able to weather the storm at least through the end of the year. Dean Spanos, the owner for the Los Angeles Chargers, very disappointing year for them, but they got. Did you have a chance to watch this last night? I know you had other obligations, but did you?
Yeah,
watch
no, I missed it. I saw the score afterwards.
Yeah, it was absolutely ugly, and it's one of those where I can say you had to watch it start to finish, but if you did watch it particularly early in the first half, like you could just tell the Chargers. I don't know. Was it just Justin Herbert's out, but I think Brandon Staley just never seemed to have the pulse of this team, unfortunately, the Carroll guy. But that was as bad as I've seen as far as guys seemingly quitting on their coach.
Yeah, so this morning I saw the highlight of the Chargers' first touchdown of the game when they were down 49-0.
Yes.
Yeah.
That pretty much sums it up for you.
Yeah.
So here is Dean Spanos with the, it's already written out someplace. Every owner has this. They just insert the names. But Dean Spanos said, quote, "I want to thank Tom and Brandon for their hard work, dedication, and professionalism, and wish both them and their great families nothing but the best. These decisions are never easy." This one actually was after last night. "Nor are they something I take lightly, especially when you consider the number of people they impact. We are clearly not where we expect to be, however, and we need new vision. Doing nothing in the name of continuity was not a risk I was willing to take. Our fans have stood strong through so many ups and downs and close games. They deserve more, frankly, and they have earned more. Building and maintaining a championship caliber program remains our ultimate goal, and reimagining, I should say, how we achieve that goal begins today. Sincerely, Dean Spanos, owner and chairman of the board of the Los Angeles Chargers." So, all right, I know we're not doing fair or foul today, but I will give you a fair or foul. We've mentioned his name this week. We went to Boston and to Foxborough specifically to talk to our buddy Christopher Price of the Boston Globe. A lot of talk about Bill Belichick. Rumors in New England saying that he's definitely done at the end of the year, maybe not. But hypothetically, for argument's sake, Bohm, Bill Belichick is available. If you are the Chargers, is he your number one guy? Bill Belichick, your number one guy. Fair or foul?
If he's available, I say totally fair, Chico. I think
Number one guy.
Yeah, now the question is he going to come in and demand general manager duties as well? And that's something where that would be a hang up that I'd have. But if he weren't to accept also that general manager role, I think you're putting him in a team that has Justin Herbert at quarterback. Like that's something you can work with, bolster up the defense. You have some weapons at receiver, make sure Herbert stays upright. And I really think that Belichick could take that team far.
Okay, I admit I am a bit I don't know where to go on this one because, as I said yesterday and earlier this week, yes, I know we all know Belichick wants Shula's record, and I think that's great. I have no problem with that. You know, he's a competitor. It means a lot to him. Great. So I do think it means a lot to him. I do think he wants to continue, but how long, we really don't know. Now, you heard Christopher Price, and I really accept his word greatly and respect his word greatly when it comes to covering the Patriots. And he said, look, this guy clearly still has the fire. Make no mistake. And that's reasonable to accept considering he's at the point in his career where he's at. You haven't gotten there by not having that fire. But I just wonder, I mean, the points that you mentioned, Bohm, you're right. I would think that Spanos would demand that, look, we got to bring somebody else in too as the GM, and you got to work together. And would Belichick be okay with that? The idea, you hit the nail on the head. The reason why Belichick would like this, and maybe Spanos would say, you know what, even if it is for, say, 3 or 4 windows, that might be the window where, with all these guys under contract, Herbert and Mack and Bosa and I think Keenan Allen is still under contract for another year. Mike Williams back from injury, Austin Eckler, that, hey, we've got the talent because they clearly have the talent. We've been sitting there, and if we've been sitting there saying that, Dean Spanos has been sitting there saying it, yelling it, like the Vince Lombardi. What the hell's going on out here? Got all this talent, and they just can't win. And I know some of it, a lot of people have said, Justin Herbert's getting a free pass, and not entirely. I mean, and he's culpable for some of this, but Brandon Staley, and to that end, I mean, what about Kellen Moore? Like, Kellen Moore this was going to be the year because they added to the defense, because last year their defense was so bad and they gave up so many explosive plays that Staley was going to take more of a hands-on approach. They brought in more talent and those explosive plays. Well, those explosive plays continued, and, well, obviously when he put up 63, that would be an explosive score in addition to that. But I just feel like, it's not all Brandon Staley, but he had to go. He's the head coach. But Kellen Moore, that was a huge talking point. Like, Kellen Moore is going to be the secret to unlocking the success of this Chargers offense and making him. And I bought into it. I think every year I bought into it. We've all bought into it. Like, this is the year. I know you've been kind of burned by the Los Angeles Chargers, but this is going to be the year, damn it. And then all of a sudden, it doesn't happen. But I don't know. Kellen Moore, something, it all went poor. If Belichick is okay with, having some help as far as player personnel and things of that nature, I guess I have no problem with it. But again, at the same time, we know that he's made some questionable decisions. We know that he is Bill Belichick and he's going to do things his way. That can be good. That can be bad. Like, I don't know. Did Brandon Staley? Maybe Samantha would have a better comment on this. I don't know if the rumors did Brandon Staley kind of run like a country club out there, and I don't know. I have no idea. But I do think that clearly he had to go. Unfortunately, Tom Telesco gone as well. I think Belichick is going to be let go at the end of the year by New England. So we'll see what happens there. All right, real quick before we get to Samantha, is everything on? We okay, Bohm? So far, so good? Or do we have complications?
I don't think there'll be very complications. The meeting just ended due to inactivity, but I thought I timed it up and I didn't. So
okay,
I'm just sending a new link.
Well, we can if we need to bring her in early, you can let her know. We can do that too. But Samantha Bunton, NBC Sunday Night Football, will join us here in a moment. JB Bickerstaff. Look, I get it, guys. I'm not gonna. This isn't me saying, well, you can't blame JB for this because of this. I'm not saying that. Yes, Evan Mobley was out. Yes, they're just getting Karis LeVert back. Yes, they've had a lot of injuries to start the season, and they're 13-12. Well, didn't you just? No, I'm not excusing. Certainly, what's really concerning most, I think, for all of us when it comes to the Cavs right now is, like, there are nights when they look like world beaters, and then there are nights where, you think, how the hell did they lose like that to Portland? Now, there's no shame in losing to the Boston Celtics, all right? The Boston Celtics are undefeated at home. They are 12-0 at the Garden. They are uber talented, and Cavs were overmatched. Even with Mobley, they're still overmatched because Boston, I think, is the best team right now in the entire NBA. But you got it. Enough of the, you start off the game actually last night it was the opposite. The first matchup with Boston this week, they started out outstanding, and then they just kind of filtered and fell apart and 2-3 zone, and Boston shot the lights out. Then last night, they came out kind of like the Chargers did last night. Like, you know what, we really don't want to be here right now. And, Boston came away with the W. All I will say is they've got 4 straight at home beginning tomorrow night, I think, against Atlanta. I think Houston's in there. They've got 4 straight and 5 of their next 7 games that are at home. Let's wait until let's see how these next 7 games go. I'm not giving him a pass. I'm not, because what some of you are saying is absolutely 100% justifiable. But even some of you who are absolutely coming with the pitchforks have to understand that it is ridiculous to think that you want the guy fired right now. I mean, come on. At the end of the year, then you have that discussion. But now, I mean, this is where you can make some excuses in terms of why I shouldn't have to make up a reason why he should still be the head coach. Obviously, it's obvious. But there are things that they need to look at. There are things they need to work at. Karis LeVert making the comments the other night after they lost, and he said, in the fourth quarter, we were disorganized. Now, some of that also was Karis LeVert just getting back healthy because he had been out for a while with a knee injury. But let's just wait. All I'm saying is, yes, there's reason to be concerned. Yes, JB has to answer some tough questions, certainly about the way these guys come out and play. That is a direct reflection and how they look coming out of the locker room to start. Absolutely 100% agree with you. But before we start calling for his job, let's see how they do these next 4 home games, 5 of the next 7. All right. Samantha Bunton, yes, no, maybe.
Hasn't joined yet.
All right. I'll tell you what. We will quickly take a break. When we come back, hopefully, we are all hooked up and ready to go with Samantha Bunton from NBC Sports and Sunday Night Football. That's on the way. Chico Borman Show, final half hour right here on the Big Play Sports Network. All righty, welcome back. Chico Borman Show winding down on this Friday. We've got sun shining outside at Burke Lakefront Airport as we broadcast live from our studios here at Burke Lakefront Airport. Chico Borman Show with you until the top of the hour. My next guest, somebody I haven't talked to in a while, and gosh darn it, Bohm, I miss her. Samantha Bunton is a senior NFL analyst, content director with NBC Sports. Also, obviously, when it comes to Sunday Night Football, she's actually the one, and one of, I should say, when it comes to making Tirico and Collinsworth and all those folks look good, Samantha really lends a hand in that regard and does great research. And she joins us right now. She's also a proud Northeast Ohio native, Mayfield Wildcat, and joins us right now. Samantha, it has been too long. How have you been?
It has been too long. I'm good. I missed you too. How you been?
Doing great. We're reeling a little bit with all of these injuries in Cleveland, which we'll get to. And last year, I'll tell you what, I usually end with baseball, but I tell everybody, and I told them before we brought you in, that I love talking baseball with you as well. So let's start with that. It was a pretty big disappointment last year. We weren't expecting that. What was your take, and then the move Stephen Vogt replacing Terry Francona?
Yeah, it was a disappointing season in some ways. I think I care less ultimately. I'm less results oriented when it comes to baseball than a lot of people. So, but I think when you have catastrophic injury luck like that, and then I think they made a few moves towards the end that were maybe not advisable, not great, which is surprising because mostly I trust this front office, but I'm not sure I agreed with the moves that started at the deadline and kind of went from there. But hey, it's a new season. The Twins are apparently no longer able to spend money. So they're right back in the boat with the rest of us, I guess, other than the Royals who've been busy this week, which is weird. But I'm pretty optimistic for the upcoming season. And I really like the hire of Stephen Vogt. I think that he's the right kind of person to come into a situation like this.
Yeah, all we've heard, and we had Zach Meisel on from The Athletic last week and talking about the winter meetings and whatnot, and he said, the guy, he actually said it reminds him and reminds a lot of people of Tito, that whenever he would take, he couldn't take more than 5 steps before somebody would, hey, Steven, what's up? Same thing with Tito. Like, he's just one of those guys. And a lot of respect throughout the league and certainly in the clubhouse, and that was certainly something that Tito valued greatly and did a great job with. So yeah, we will see. By the way, blue seats are being installed, Samantha. If you did not know, blue seats, the green seats are out, the blue seats are in. You can deal with that accordingly, however you see fit.
Man, people are upset about those blue seats. Like, first of all, I feel like somebody needs to tell them that the money spent to change the seat color was not going to go to payroll had they not changed the seat color. So we got to get that out there, right? But like, I don't know, man, blue seats, green seats. I don't know if I really care. I don't know. Do you care?
No.
Do you care if the seats are blue?
No, I don't
care.
You know what it is? You know this as well as I do. We'll get to football here in a second, but you know as well as I do, the leash is just very short when it comes to, and yes, last year was a disappointment. They bombed on Zanino and Josh Bell, and we know. But like, their leash and their margin for error is so very slim when you compare it to, obviously, like the Browns, even the Cavaliers, that, if they gotta find something to yell about, then damn it, why are they taking the green seats and putting blue seats? Yeah, why don't you because I heard the same thing you did. Why don't they put that money back into payroll? I don't think it was earmarked for that, but yeah, you appreciate the concern from the fans, right?
Yeah. And there are plenty of things to criticize and plenty of things to be unhappy about. I'm sort of exhausted by the one note, Dolans are cheap. And it's just, man, I'm so tired. Like, I come back to that whole mess that happened with the Mariners where Jerry DiPoto went out there and said the quiet part out loud. And we won more than 54% of our games because they ran that study where they were talking about how if you win 54% of your games over a sustained period of time, your fan base will be happy. And there were only 6 teams that had managed it in the span that they looked at. And a lot of them are the teams you would expect. But one of them was the Indians/Guardians. And it's just every time I think about that, I think, see, this is actually a really successful team. And I know there's a contingent of the fan base that thinks that if you don't win a World Series, that it's not a success. But like, guess what? Only when there's 30 teams and 29 of them don't win a World Series every year. So as long as they're putting a competitive product out on the field, and more years than not, they do. I mean, I wish they would spend more money. That would be wonderful, right? But it's not going to happen. So I'm having a hard time sort of adjusting into this. Well, let's all be miserable and let's all break down to like, how much should the blue seats cost? Like how much of a, 1/3 of an Austin Hedges or whatever that would have brought in had you left the seats in green. I'm exhausted, you guys. It's exhausting.
This is why I love talking baseball with the great Samantha Bunton. Again, joining us with NBCSports.com, Northeast Ohio native. All right, we'll get to the Browns in a moment. Let's just tackle NFL in general and the big news from last night. Certainly around these parts, Brandon Staley from Carroll, and you hate to see anybody lose their job like that. But Samantha, I hate to be like hyperbolic with this, and exaggerate or anything, but like you've seen teams that clearly have kind of quit on their coach. You've seen teams where, you know what, we'd kind of rather be here or there rather than here. But man, oh man, did it seem blatantly obvious that the Chargers had absolutely zero interest in playing the Raiders last night?
Oh, absolutely. I think the entire locker room was just checked out. I mean, honestly, Staley himself seemed kind of checked out. Like, I feel like for weeks that guy's been like actively trying to get fired.
Yeah.
And just, Brandon Staley is a really, really good guy. And I think he has a very bright future as a commentator or perhaps as a speechwriter, but he's not a great football coach. And he's never been a great football coach, at least in terms of being a head coach specifically. So perhaps this was Peter principle and everybody gets promoted beyond their abilities eventually. And perhaps he is better suited to a coordinator's job, or perhaps he is better suited to a job that is not about making football decisions, but is in the football sphere, shall we say. But yeah, I mean, you feel bad for the guy, but at the same time, he's had a lot of chances. He had a lot of talent, a lot of young players who didn't develop under his tutelage, some questionable in-game management as well. It was time. It was past time, actually.
So I look in the bio, and this has been there for a while. You call yourself a Belichick apologist. A lot of news. Well, it's been all season, really, but certainly lately, Tom Curran with a report maybe that the decision's already been made. First of all, two-parter. Do you think that Bill Belichick is back with the Patriots next year? If not, do you think that he is Dean Spanos' number one candidate? And would Bill want to, do you think, would want to grab that job?
I think it's unlikely he's back with the Patriots next year. Up until very recently, I would have said otherwise. I would have said, well, Bill will leave either when Bill feels like leaving or, when he dies out there, like 10 years from now on the field in the middle of the game. But we've heard some things from the Tom Curran report and from various sources around the Patriots saying that there's been a quiet quitting agreement for Bill to kind of say, okay, this is going to be his last season with the Patriots. It's just become one of those things where it's time to move on. And it's, I think, pretty reliable, at least as reliable as you can get information at this point in the process. So I would be surprised if he was back with the Patriots. I mean, I know the dream was like Belichick to the Chargers, right? Which is not a terrible idea. And I'm sure the Chargers would love for that to happen. But I don't know. I mean, does Bill Belichick, absolute legend who has nothing to prove and who is getting up there in years, want to like switch coasts and go on to coach? Maybe, I don't know. It's Belichick. It's entirely possible that he would just live forever and he's going to be coaching after we're all dead. But I don't know. It's a big move. However, if he does want to keep coaching, which job are you taking? Taking that? You're taking the Panthers job. Like, of course you're taking the Chargers job. Of course you are.
Right. Here's the thing with Belichick, because I agree with you. On the surface, I would say, yeah, he's got nothing else. He doesn't want to go through this again. Hey, he's accomplished plenty, and he's getting up there. The other thing is, though, too, and I'm sure you know this, and we talked to Christopher Price quite a bit from the Boston Globe, and he's like, Chico, this guy absolutely positively wants Don Shula's record. So, like, how much does that record mean to him? You hear from people close to him that, I don't know if it's the end all be all, but it certainly is weighing into any decision as far as he's concerned, as far as continuing his career. I think it's interesting. Because would he then have no Christopher says the fire still burns very much inside him. And of course, You believe that because that's how he's gotten to be who he is. But do you think that Shula record really is something that he is pointing at and saying, no, I really do want to get there?
I do. I mean, he'll never admit that. I mean, you would get the most Belichickian of answers if you actually asked him that question directly. But yeah, I think that matters to him. I mean, it's sort of why, I mean, I guess I should specify that while I think Belichick has nothing left to prove, I don't know that Belichick feels that Belichick has nothing left to prove. So, yeah, I can't see. I mean, to me, it's more about the right situation, right? Is Belichick going to take what he perceives to be a crappy job with a team like the Panthers, for example, just to have a chance to stack up a handful more wins? I don't think so. But if there's a good situation, and this is why I sort of think the LA job is perhaps somewhat appealing under the circumstances with Justin Herbert there, and who knows what kind of control he would have over. I mean, there's some question too, I guess, about whether Belichick is really any good at talent evaluation anymore, but he's certainly still a good coach. So also, do you think that man has hobbies? I mean, what's he going to do other than coach? This is why I think he might die on the field someday. He's going to stay out there until he keels over. What else do you think he's going to do? He doesn't have hobbies.
He's going to go to
have fun.
He'll either die on the field or at a Bon Jovi concert.
True. That is
which we don't want either. I want to be clear. I'm not looking at either of those scenarios. But yeah, that is he does, and I'm a big Bon Jovi fan. So hey, me and Bill do have something in common there. No, it is. It's a fascinating topic. Let me a couple other things. This has been we could say it every year. We do say it every year. Man, this has been a crazy year in the National Football League. But from my gosh, teams that you expected so much more of that really aren't cashing in, and Kansas City and, Buffalo, other teams, and then to teams that, they're pretty much, you leave them for dead, and then here they are. Denver Broncos are 7-6, and could they be in the mix? What is the biggest surprise to you, either way, good to bad, bad to good? What's the biggest surprise this year, 15 weeks into the season?
Well, I mean, it's hard not to answer that question right now with what has happened to the Eagles, but that really only concerns, the past handful of weeks. And prior to that, it was a really different situation. Obviously, the Chiefs, really disappointing as well. The Bills, certainly. I mean, I guess probably the best way to answer this is in a more global sense of like, the AFC is a mess. Yeah. I mean, even the Dolphins, who were kind of the last man standing outside of maybe the Ravens, who I just feel perpetually underwhelmed by, because we know they're going to choke in the first round of the playoffs, right? We know this. So the Dolphins were kind of like the last hope, and then they lost to Tennessee. And then you go back and you look through the record and you realize, they lost by 28 points to Buffalo in week 4. And then they lost the game in Germany to the Chiefs. They haven't beaten any good teams. So does nobody want this? Nobody want to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl?
Who do you believe in? Like, who do you believe in most? Even if you don't necessarily believe in them, but you have to pick somebody. Who do you believe in the most in the AFC?
No one. I probably the Ravens. I mean, actually, no. I believe in the Ravens to look on paper like the best team going into the playoffs. Do I believe in the Ravens as the team that survives the longest? No. I mean, if we're just talking about like who has the best fighting chance to still be alive at the end of the postseason, like you kind of have to go chalk and say the Chiefs and say they'll figure it out, right? Because the rest of these guys, oh man. It's bad.
Okay, so you closely monitor the Bills as well. So let me ask you, Sean McDermott, this recent thing, maybe it's galvanized them. I mean, obviously, a hell of a way to galvanize the team, but maybe they've stood up for him. And what do you make of them? We talk about disappointments and high expectations. If you could put your finger on one thing and say, you know what, that's kind of been the biggest issue for the Buffalo Bills, what would it be?
Well, I think way too much attention has been paid to is, Josh Allen accurate at this particular moment in time, or is he not accurate or whatever? Josh Allen is a very good quarterback, and he's not going to be an MVP every season. He's not that kind of quarterback, and I think that's fine. And the Bills probably have suffered, they certainly have suffered a bit anytime he has a setback, but that is not my primary concern. And I hate that that's the headline. I think that defensively, this team has a lot of problems. And that's been certainly something that has been addressed and has been touched on. I don't really think this is a coaching issue. You talked about what happened with McDermott, which is obviously disappointing, but it's also one of those things where it goes one of two ways after something like that comes out, right? And it's either, Ty Dunn did a good job, I think, with sort of the way that he handled this and presented the information. And then either the team all pulls together and rallies around the guy, or they all quit on him. And in this situation, it looks like they're going to rally around him. So I don't think that's an issue, but I do think there's going to be ongoing issues with that defense. I mean, hilariously, they lose a game because their defense performs poorly, and then they fire the offensive coordinator. So there's some questionable decision-making that's going on there, but they've also never lost a game by more than 6 points, at least not during this season. So I think that's something to consider as well.
Do you think McDermott's safe after this? I mean, you can say, well, hey, we still got to play out the season, and that's fair. But do you think he's safe for next year?
I do. I think if they don't make the playoffs, he will be on notice, and he will be one of the first to go next year if things don't change pretty dramatically. But I'm not sure in the current situation it makes sense to fire him. I'm not sure they're going to do better unless, does Belichick want to go to the Bills? I mean, that would be like the ultimate middle finger to Robert Kraft, right? If they've had a falling out, if things are no longer what they once were. I mean, that's the dream, right? Belichick to the Bills.
Yeah, wow, very interesting. All right, closing moments, last but certainly not least, let's touch on those Browns. And, boy, you talk about just continuing to come off the mat, and we phrased this so many different ways this year, but if I tell you Deshaun Watson, Nick Chubb, and Jack Conklin, and now, I mean, this week alone, another handful, that the Browns would be 8-5 and right in the thick of the playoff race, would you have believed it? And your thoughts on the job Kevin Stefanski has done?
Well, no, I would never have believed it because it's the unluckiest franchise in the history of professional sports. So there's absolutely no way I would have believed you if you told me that. I'm not sure I believe it's happening right now, even with the numbers right in front of me, even I've seen all the games. But I mean, it's weird. They've been incredibly unlucky in so many ways, mostly with regard to injuries, but they've also been very lucky in terms of things like weird officiating flukes and things like that. So you're like, okay, this is weird. We're having some real Brownsy luck on one end of this. And then we're also kind of having some luck that is usually the kind of thing that never goes the Browns' way. But mostly, I mean, I don't think it's fair to attribute this to luck. I think this team has done essentially the opposite of like what the Chargers did, which is like, well, you've had catastrophic injury issues. You've had some other issues with underperformance by expensive players in various corridors, both last season and this season. And they kind of just have refused to quit. I mean, I think it's great. And I also think it's a pretty good testament to Kevin Stefanski and his staff that they have been able to keep this team on this path, despite all of the setbacks that they have, that whoever is still out there, whether it's Joe Flacco or whoever it may be, is totally bought into this. And it's just like, okay, you know what? We're going to be this like ragtag and we're going to go to the playoffs. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, and you know what's funny, and I think you and I did talk about this back when it was going on. But they make that the postseason and they beat the Steelers in that wacky year, the COVID year. And I thought then, I'm like, hey, if you can do all of that in the middle of a pandemic, then man, that culture because that's that C word that everybody in culture, the Browns need it. And I thought, well, if they can do that, then yeah, the culture's back. And then we found out that, well, culture involves consistency and stability. And I feel like now, and I'm knocking on wood as we speak, but I feel like, not only because, yes, they're 8-5 and winning does cure a lot of problems, but it does feel like when you see these videos in the locker room, which I'm sure you've seen on social media, like they really are playing for each other. They really do have, finally, it seems like, that family culture, that atmosphere that JOK was referencing this week. Am I right or wrong?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think to me, and I think you can probably do this too, if you do this job for long enough, you start to be able to like smell a rat when it comes to things like hype videos and sort of conveniently released locker room footage where you're like, everybody here looks like they're acting in a high school play. Like there's no way this is real. And then you see, for example, what we're seeing now from the Browns, which is so different from what we've seen from Browns teams in the past and from many other organizations in the NFL where you just know it's a big old mess in there when the camera's not rolling. Like this feels very legitimate. Like everybody there has just absolutely bought in. So in the past, we've seen some like real like bad actor stuff with the Browns with these, but this is a completely different animal in like the best possible way.
Okay, I'll leave you with this. In addition to being a proud Northeast Ohio native and Mayfield Wildcat, you are a Penn Stater, and what's interesting about Penn State over the years is I've found myself because I did work in Pennsylvania for a time before coming back home. And, people were just all over James Franklin. I mean, 5 years, it's just, nonstop. And I'm like, man, this guy kind of gets a bad rap. Now I'm like, okay, you guys were right. I was wrong. You follow it closely. If you got together with 100 Penn State alums this weekend, would there be one person that would say, hey, I think we keep James Franklin. I think he's doing one hell of a job.
I hope not. I hope not.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, it's so bad. It's so bad. I think I've been out on James Franklin for a long time, and
You
most
have
of my
been. You're right.
fellow Penn Staters have also been out on James Franklin for quite a bit of time. But if there was ever, I think, a tipping point for the people who were, well, we should give this guy a chance or trust the program or whatever you want to say, like, oh my gosh, like, please, I would put him in a box on the corner with the free to good home sign. I don't even care. I'll pay him to go away. Oh, it's bad. It's bad. It's such a waste of a very, very talented team especially this year in a season where I think the Big Ten was a bit vulnerable for a team like Penn State. They've been better coached.
Follow her on Twitter at Samantha Bunton. Now, do you have, I know occasionally you appear on podcasts. Are you doing any podcasts talking some baseball and whatnot?
Yeah, we have Lollygagging Sports, and you're on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. So come check that out. We do a little bit of NFL. It's mostly baseball. It's national baseball coverage, not just Guardians, although we do talk some Guardians. But yeah, come check us out. You're a fun show.
I will. You know what? I did not even. I've heard you and I've seen the clips, but I didn't realize. Okay, so Lollygagging Sports. I'm on that as soon as this show ends. It was such a pleasure to catch up with you. Continued success, and we hope to talk to you again real soon. Thank you, Samantha.
Great catching up with you. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Samantha Bunton, again, senior NFL analyst, content director with NBCSports.com. Yeah, interesting stuff there all the way around. I think, as far as the Browns are concerned, this does feel real. Very easy to say that, too, because, well, just 8-5. But she's right about the smell of rat. Right, like if any fan base does have the ability to roll their eyes and go, oh God, here we go again, and we've heard this before. It's them. Yeah, it's absolutely this fan base. But really good stuff from her and looking around the league, Belichick, the Chargers. It's going to be an interesting offseason, a very, very interesting offseason. So. All right, we are out of time for this Friday. Going to be a fun weekend. Of course, Browns and Bears coming up on Sunday. Hopefully we got a victory Monday to celebrate on Monday and talk about the Browns 9-5 and really, at that point, pretty much on the brink of getting into the postseason. But this will not be an easy game. A lot of injuries. Weather could be a factor as well. It's December. It's Cleveland, so you know. By the way, boom, our basketball Buckeyes have a biggie tomorrow against the UCLA Bruins. So Bruce Thornton and company, like him, Chris Holtmann, we hope, speaking of guys that aren't very well liked in their fan base, he's not exactly gaining in popularity, Chris Holtmann, these days.
You think he's on the hot seat right now?
I always wonder about, you got the AD, Gene Smith's out after this year, or retiring after this year. I hate to say the inevitable, but okay, how do they do in the Big Ten and in the NCAA tournament? Because every year it's like, well, okay, maybe one win, maybe not. But as far as any kind of a run, forget about it. And the collapses, end of games, end of season, that kind of stuff's just getting old. It's kind of like the James Franklin BS at Penn State. Not to that degree, but it's being talked about in Columbus. But yeah, the Bruins and the Buckeyes, if you go to sleep at 5 o'clock today, boom, there's a chance that you will wake up in time for that 3:30 tip tomorrow. Well, you did tough one out today. But I saw you smirking during the interview I had with Samantha. So you were, somebody lifted your spirits there, which is good to see.
Yeah, I did incur a spirit lifter.
Good. Boom, with about as much energy as anyone could muster. Yes, I did incur a spirit lifter. Thank you, Boom. All right. Thanks to Samantha Bunton. Thank you to Dan Lobby. Thank you to Sean Hammond, all guests here on the Chico Borman Show on the Big Play Sports Network. I will talk to you again on Monday, beginning at noon. Like I said, let's hope that it is a victory Monday, and these Brownies are 9-5. Go Browns, go Cavs. Hell, let's go basketball Bucks as well. I'm Mike Chico Borman. For all of us here at Big Play Sports, make it a great weekend, everybody. Go Browns.